That's not supposed to look like that. How's it going, guys? So today we're going to be working on one of my favorite tractors that they ever built, and that's the Ford 8N. So this tractor came to me by a customer, said the 3-point lift on it doesn't lift up or down, has no movement at all, and he doesn't know what's wrong with it. So brought it to me. We're going to go ahead and tear it apart, see if we can diagnose it, and then see if we can fix it. Here we go. So the first thing I did, obviously, is make sure on the left side it is engaged, the PTO is engaged. And then when I got the tractor, this lever was in the down position. That's your draft control. Your draft control in these tractors should always be up, unless you're using in-ground implements, then you can put it down. And I can make another video if you're interested later about what draft control is and how it works on these tractors. It's pretty simple. So we moved that up, ran the 3-point, still no change in the 3-point arms. So that's not working. So now, I already pulled the bolt out, but we're going to take a look inside of this inspection plate with the tractor running and see if we can see any turbulence in the hydraulics of the tractor and see if it's actually pumping any fluid, and then we'll go from there. And then just make sure you have a catch pan down, because as soon as you pop this bottom bolt out, it's going to start leaking fluid. And then don't forget your shortest bolts. They're going to be 2 different sizes on your top hole and your bottom hole.
So this next part I'm just going to voice over because of the sound of the tractor in the background, but when we pop this off, we're looking for 4 different things. The first, make sure that your linkage is moving back and forth when you move your 3-point controls. The second is going to be where this arrow is. That makes sure that your pump's pumping fluid. And then right here, if you see fluid pouring out, that means that your relief valve is stuck open. So the last thing that we're looking for is fluid raining down from the top plate, and that would just indicate some sort of issue with the top plate of your hydraulic system. In this case, I have hydraulic fluid coming from the back of the hydraulic cylinder, and this is with the 3-point controls in the up position. And then you'll see as soon as I put the 3-point controls to the bottom position, the fluid stops draining, just like that.
So from that short clip, I think I know what the issue is, or at least I got a sneaking suspicion. I'm going to go ahead and pull this top lid and dig in a little further. But if you think you know what it is, go ahead and leave a comment what it is. We'll see if we're right. All right, so we got all the bolts out. Before we start getting too crazy taking every single one of these bolts out, we got to remember one thing, is these 4 bolts on these sides are long. They're the longest ones. This is a medium one that goes into there right above your draft control. These ones are a little smaller than that. So these are like small mediums. And then all these ones that go around the front plate are all small ones. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different size bolts, and they all have to go back into the right spot. So that's where they go. So I'm choosing to use an engine hoist to pick it up. If you've got a couple of friends, which I don't have, you just get a couple of people to help you lift it, you'll be fine. Roll it forward a little bit. And we're good to come all the way out. You guys all get your guesses in of what it was, because I'm about to show you. So the issue is going to be right here. That's not supposed to look like that. So this is your lift cylinder. This is your 3-point cylinder, and there's a little plunger back here that pushes this piston in here, which raises and lowers your 3-point arms when this fills with fluid. Well, what happened with this one, I'm guessing because there's a bunch of water in the hydraulic fluid, so I bet the hydraulic fluid that was left in here froze and blew the back out of the cylinder housing. And yeah, it's not supposed to look like that.
Alrighty guys, we ended up getting all the hydraulic fluid out of there. I ended up having to flush it with about 3 gallons of diesel as well, get in there and break everything up. I even got my wet dry shop vac in there trying to get all the sludge out of the bottom of it, and we did all right. There's still some left in there, but I think that's about as good as we're gonna be able to get it. When I was pumping out all the fluid, I ended up finding the end of that hydraulic cylinder laying in the bottom of all that oil. But we got our new one. It showed up, and that's what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to be solid there on the end. So that's the piece that ended up breaking off. So we're going to go ahead and pull off the old one, throw this one on. So this hydraulic cylinder is held onto this top plate with these 4 bolts right here. And the nuts are right here on the other side. I already broke them loose, but we're going to go ahead and pull those nuts out. I like to put mine, I've got mine on my engine hoist right now because it's so awkward and you don't want to bend any of this stuff on the bottom and having it down on a table or something like that. It's a real awkward shape. So I just hoist mine up in the air and then you can work on it just like this. You can spin it around and get to both sides of it very easy. So we're going to go ahead and pull those off and then pop that hydraulic cylinder out. Got to give a couple of these a little love tap to get out. And then these also have two different size bolts. So the long bolt is going to go here towards the rear of the tractor, and then the small bolt is going to go towards the front of the tractor. And then just be careful when you pull this last bolt out, that hydraulic cylinder is going to fall. So hold on to it. And there it is. Let's take a look at it. So if you're taking this off just to replace the piston on the inside because you have a problem with your 3-point leaking down when you have weight on it, you're going to end up having to push this out. You can see it in there. And this will be solid on the end, obviously, because it's not broken like this one. But when you do that, there's a little hole right here in the top of the cylinder. What you're going to do is end up putting an air chuck in there and spraying air into this void space, and then you'll shoot that piston out of there. When you do it, it's going to come out with a lot of force, so make sure you have it pointed at something that you don't mind destroying, because it's going to come out of there fast. So we're not going to take this one out because it's all freaking garbage anyways, but that's how you do that. And so now I've got my piston, and the first thing we're going to slide on is our leather backer. And just before you put this on, you're going to want to soak it in some warm water for a couple of minutes. That's going to help that leather stretch out and go over the top here, because you don't want to rip it. And then the leather will dry back out and shrink back up to how it's supposed to be. So then you want to take your rubber O-ring, you're going to slide that right over the top of it. Then after you get that rubber O-ring on there, you just want to make sure that that leather backer is lined up. It will get sucked down underneath that rubber O-ring in some spots. It should look like that. So your leather backer should go towards the open part, and your rubber O-ring should go towards the top. Then you're ready to install it. All right, when you're ready to reinstall this, we're just going to take a little bit of motor oil, just any type of oil really works, just to lubricate this seal here, just because you don't want that thing to get bound up when you're putting it back in. So get a little bit of oil on there, slide it back in its home, and then just take the back side of a hammer. We're going to give it a couple good thunks. And just like that, it's all the way down there at the bottom. We're ready to put it back on the top lid. So it may not look like it, but there's actually a gasket right here where these 3 holes are. Your hydraulic fluid actually comes in through that hole from the pump, up through this channel, and then down into that hydraulic piston. And so we're going to clean all this off to make sure that we don't have any problem with it sealing with our new gasket. All right, now that we got that taken down to nice and shiny new metal, we can reinstall. So the easiest way I've found for reinstall is you're going to take your 2 small bolts, put them on the back of the pump with the gasket, and then you're going to slide that rod in there, get those bolts started in the hole, pull your lever up out of the way, and slide it right on. Hopefully you remember to put 2 nuts in your hand. And you're going to tighten those on the back. And now your new cylinder is back on the top lid. So before we get ready to reinstall everything, we're going to check a couple of adjustments just because we have this top lid off. So the first thing we're going to check is the smaller of these 2 springs right here. This is going to be what's called your position control spring. And we're going to check the overall length of the actual spring uncompressed. So your lever should be all the way up in the up position, and then this should technically be held back against it. just to take any slop out of the spring. But the overall length of that spring should be 1 15/16 of an inch. So just shy of 2 inches. And if it's not that length, you can adjust it with this nut back here on the back and adjust it to that length. The second thing we're going to measure and adjust is going to be this larger of the two springs. You can see it right there behind it. This is your draft control spring, and the overall length of it is 3 9/16 of an inch. So just over 3.5 inches. So we're going to do the same thing. Go ahead and measure the length of that spring, and then the adjustment for it's going to be kind of hard to see, but it's this nut right there that's just behind that arm. And with all those in spec, we're going to go ahead and clean off this top plate mating surface and get ready to reinstall it on the tractor. All right, so the next thing we need to do on this tractor, now that we got the top lid ready to be installed, is we're going to be replacing the relief valve for the hydraulics. And I'm doing that for two reasons. One, we already have this off, so we might as well replace it because they can fail. And secondly, I want to make sure that that hydraulic piston didn't blow because this thing failed. So this is the new part. So that guy right there is the valve that we're going to be replacing. So looking from the top, you can just barely see it right there on the other side of the PTO shaft. And if you have a crowfoot 11/16, you can get that out without having to pull the PTO. But I don't have an 11/16 one. So what I'm going to end up doing is just pulling these 4 bolts, pulling the PTO shaft out, and then we can get a wrench in there and loosen that up. Now this one's a little bit more difficult to pull out than normal because this gentleman has that plate on there. Cool. Let's put something to catch all that. Oh. All right, now with that PTO shaft out of the way, you can see it nice and clear now. That's the valve we're going to pull out there, and it's 11/16. So there's the old one out. There's the new one going back in. A little different design, but this one's much better. And a couple seconds later, new one's in. All right, now we just got to slide this PTO shaft back in here, and we get to cheat a little bit since this thing's apart. If you reach down into here, you can actually line it up and spin it. Just spin it nice and slow, and just like that. It'll slide right in. So either from in there or from back here, you just want to turn that PTO shaft back and forth just a little bit, just to get those splines to line up. And once they do, it'll slide right in. Sometimes it's kind of a pain in the butt, but be patient. Don't go hitting on it with anything. It will slide right in just like nothing once you get it all lined up. So as I'm lowering this down, I'm going to have to guide the tip of this little rod right down into that hole, and that's what actuates your hydraulics and your 3-point. Now, if you have 2 people, it's super helpful for this part. If not, you're just going to have to run back and forth and check that inspection plate. All right, about right there, I want to stop. So once you get to this point where you're about 4 or 5 inches above the tractor with the top lid, you may feel it bottom out prematurely, but once you get to this point, you'll want to check anyways. Make sure that rod is falling down behind your pump there. If it falls down up on top over to the right, then it's going to bottom out. You're not going to be able to get it set down. So make sure that falls behind. So once you make sure that rod's behind there, go ahead and put your 3-point lever all the way down to the bottom, and that's going to pull that arm all the way back towards you, towards the back of the tractor. And then you can push this down into its home and then pull it back towards you as far as it'll go. Now just double check that that is still going to fall down behind, and it is. It's going to fall down behind that hydraulic pump. So we're just going to hold this back towards us and lower it down until we're almost touching the top plate. There we go. We're going to come back over here. Make sure everything's falling down where it's supposed to. Everything's still looking good. I've got about another inch before I need to guide that rod into its hole. Go down just a little bit more. And then check it again. Like I'm saying, guys, doing it with just one person, it's a real slow process. And it's better to just go slow and get it down in there the first try than it is to get it most of the way in and realize something's wrong and have to pull it back out. And so just go, you know, half an inch at a time and make sure everything's going to line up where it's supposed to. So I am right just about touching the top of it. So we should be ready to set this down the rest of the way. So I just barely have the weight off of there. I am in the hole. I should just have to scooch this forward. There it is. And now that's all in. All right, now we're just going to go ahead and put our pin in back here for our draft control because we don't want to lose this. Makes it real hard if that falls out of position. So with that on back there, you can just pull forward on it and get these guys lined up. Too far. Oh, too far again. There it is. And really, if you just put that first bolt in, a couple of turns, you can lift the pressure off of this top plate. And now you should be able to scoot your gasket around, make it straight. Now you can just push that gasket around and get the rest of these bolts in. Now that we have every single one of them started, we can actually let all the pressure off, and we should be done with this. Now we just got to tighten all these down. Now that the top lid's on, we just got to reconnect our 3-point arms. So all I got left now is to reinstall our inspection plate. I'm going to start it with a bolt in. There it is. This is your lock for your brake. It goes on the back, and the teeth go towards the rear of the tractor. And then your step is mounted to these 2 front bolts of the inspection plate. And let's tighten all that up. So the only thing left to do now is fill this thing with oil. The fill's right here on top next to the shifter. We're going to be using Traveler's Universal hydraulic and transmission fluid. As far as I know, this is about as close as you can get to meeting all the standards of the old oil that these call for like the Ford 8N, 9N, 2N Ferguson TO20 to 35, all those. It takes about 4 gallons, so we'll be here for a minute. All right, full of fluid. I guess the last thing to do now is fire it up and make sure everything works. Cross our fingers. Just like that, everything's working. Well, the owner's on his way to pick this guy up. Looks like we got everything fixed. And thanks for hanging out. We'll see you next time.